In the early 90s, an unproven showrunner pitched a paranormal thriller about government secrets, unexplained phenomena, and two FBI agents chasing the truth. But what started as a risky experiment turned into one of the most iconic television series of all time. Its eerie atmosphere, unforgettable characters, and gripping mysteries kept audiences hooked for years. But as time went on, something changed. The show's legacy grew complicated, and its attempts at revival sparked more questions than answers. So how did a cult favorite become a global phenomenon? And what happened along the way? Let's find out. This is the history of The X-Files.
They've got a UFO here, and they'll do anything to keep it a secret.
By the early 90s, Fox was still a young network searching for a defining drama that could compete with the likes of NBC and CBS. Enter Chris Carter, a former writer for Disney who had spent years working on family-friendly sitcoms. Tired of lighthearted programming, Carter wanted to create something darker, something that captured his childhood fascination with horror, science fiction, and government paranoia. The inspiration came from multiple sources. He had grown up watching The Twilight Zone, Kolchak the Night Stalker, and Twin Peaks, shows that blurred the line between the supernatural and reality. But the real spark came from something far stranger, a 1991 survey claiming that 3.7 million Americans believed they had been abducted by aliens. The idea of mass paranoia, coupled with lingering distrust from the Watergate scandal, convinced Carter that he had found the perfect subject for a television series. When he pitched his concept to Fox, executives weren't interested. They rejected the idea outright, seeing little potential in an episodic show about FBI agents investigating unexplained phenomena. He reworked his concept, sharpening the show's premise and leaning into the procedural elements to ground it in realism. Fox finally agreed to a pilot, giving Carter the creative freedom to develop his vision. At the heart of the show was the dynamic between two FBI agents. Carter wanted to frame the series around a believer and a skeptic, using their partnership as a way to explore the unknown. Fox Mulder, a brilliant but obsessive profiler, would be the true believer, convinced that extraterrestrials existed and that the government was covering up the truth. His new partner, Dana Scully, would be the rational scientist, approaching each case with logic and skepticism. Carter saw this as an opportunity to challenge traditional gender roles, making Mulder the one driven by emotion and faith, while Scully remained analytical and methodical. Fox liked the revised pitch, but there was one problem: casting. Carter had a vision for his leads, but the network had its own ideas. And when it came to choosing the actress who would play Dana Scully, the fight was just beginning.
A top secret project.
They can't just take a man without an explanation.
A high-level cover-up. They can do anything.
With Fox finally on board, the search for the right actors to bring the X-Files to life began. Chris Carter knew that casting would make or break the show, especially since it was built entirely around the chemistry between its two leads. He needed actors who could sell both the procedural and supernatural elements of the series, a duo that could carry episodes that ranged from straight horror to government conspiracy thrillers. David Duchovny was one of the first actors to audition for the role of Fox Mulder. At the time, he was relatively unknown, having done small parts in films and television. He had even played a DEA agent in Twin Peaks, a show that had clearly influenced Carter's vision. When Duchovny read for the role, his performance was strong, but there was a problem. He was slow and almost monotone in his delivery. Carter, who was sitting in on the audition, had reservations about whether David could bring the necessary intensity to Mulder, but the show's casting director pushed for him, convinced that Duchovny was the right choice. In the end, Carter agreed, and David was cast. What he didn't know yet was that David's dry, deadpan approach to the character would end up being one of Mulder's defining traits. Dana Scully, however, was a different story. Carter had a clear idea of who he wanted, someone with intelligence, authority, and presence. When Gillian Anderson auditioned, she immediately impressed him. But Fox executives saw things differently. They had expected someone taller, more glamorous, more conventionally attractive, someone who looked like she could be a co-lead in a primetime drama. Anderson, in their eyes, didn't have the sex appeal they were looking for. Carter refused to back down. He argued that Anderson had the perfect mix of skepticism and intensity, the no-nonsense approach that the role required. Scully wasn't supposed to be just another attractive sidekick. She was the intellectual equal to Mulder, and her believability as a medical doctor and FBI agent mattered far more than her looks. Fox executives continued to push for other actresses, but Carter stood his ground. Eventually, the network relented, and Anderson was cast. It was a decision that would define the show, as Anderson's portrayal of Scully would go on to become one of the most iconic female characters in television history. Beyond the two leads, other key roles had to be filled. The character of Walter Skinner, Mulder and Scully's superior, needed a strong presence, and Mitch Pileggi fit the bill perfectly. Originally, Pileggi had auditioned for several smaller roles, but Carter hadn't been able to see him in those parts. When he came in for Skinner, however, everything clicked. His gruff demeanor and commanding screen presence made him an instant fit for the no-nonsense FBI assistant director. Then there was the cigarette-smoking man, the shadowy government figure who would become the show's primary antagonist. Played by William B. Davis, the character wasn't meant to be anything more than a background extra in the pilot, but his chilling silence and ever-present cigarette gave him an ominous quality that stood out, and as the show developed, his role grew. He became the face of the vast conspiracy at the heart of the X-Files, an enigmatic figure whose motives and allegiances remained shrouded in mystery. With the main cast in place, production could begin. Carter had his Mulder, his Scully, and his shadowy villains. But now came the hard part, turning this ambitious concept into a television series.
I think those kids have been abducted.
By who? By what?
Position 10 requesting backup.
Your lives may be in danger.
With the cast locked in and production underway, The X-Files was set to take viewers into the unknown. But what kind of show was it? Was it a crime procedural, a horror series, a government conspiracy thriller? The answer was all of the above. At its core, The X-Files followed FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully as they investigated unsolved cases labeled as X-Files. Incidents involving UFO sightings, strange creatures, unexplained phenomena, and disturbing crimes that defied logical explanation. Each episode typically revolved around a bizarre case, with Mulder always ready to embrace the paranormal and Scully pushing back with scientific skepticism. The balance between their perspectives was the backbone of the series, with the show constantly playing with the question, was Mulder right or was there always a rational explanation? The structure of the series was unique for its time. Carter and his writers crafted two distinct types of episodes. The first, known as Monster of the Week, focused on standalone cases. These were the episodes where Mulder and Scully would face terrifying creatures, serial killers with unnatural abilities, or supernatural forces that seemed to exist just beyond the reach of science. But then there was the mythology arc, the ongoing serialized storyline that slowly unraveled the vast government conspiracy at the heart of the show. In these episodes, Mulder pursued his obsession with uncovering the truth about extraterrestrial life, believing that the government was actively covering up proof of alien existence. His personal connection to the conspiracy, his belief that his sister Samantha had been abducted by aliens when they were children, drove his relentless search for answers. These episodes introduced the shadowy figures who controlled information from behind the scenes. This mix of standalone horror and deep conspiracy storytelling was a bold approach. At a time when most television series relied on episodic storytelling, The X-Files created one of the first truly serialized narratives in network television. The mythology episodes kept longtime viewers hooked, unraveling new layers of the conspiracy piece by piece. But it was the Monster of the Week format that made the show accessible, allowing casual viewers to tune in without needing to follow an ongoing storyline. This balance between accessibility and depth became one of the key reasons for the show's success. It meant that The X-Files could appeal to multiple audiences, those who loved horror, those who craved government intrigue, and those who just wanted a solid detective show with great characters. But storytelling wasn't the only thing that set The X-Files apart. The show's atmosphere became its signature. The eerie, cinematic look, the moody lighting, the heavy use of shadows, and the now iconic whistling theme song by Mark Snow all combined to give the series a distinct feel. From the very first episode, The X-Files set itself apart as something different. It wasn't afraid to be unsettling, to challenge its audience, or to leave questions unanswered. That sense of mystery and ambiguity kept fans coming back week after week. But while the storytelling approach was groundbreaking, the real test was whether audiences would actually show up to watch it.
This is no ordinary assignment. The reason you're here, Agent Scully, is we want you to assist Mulder on these X-Files. He's no ordinary partner.
You believe in these?
When The X-Files premiered on September 10th, 1993, expectations were low. Fox wasn't banking on the show becoming a massive hit. In fact, the network had given it a Friday night time slot, often considered a death sentence for new series. But something strange happened. Despite the odds, The X-Files started gaining traction. The pilot episode pulled in 12 million viewers, a respectable number for a network still building its reputation. As the season progressed, word of mouth spread and audiences grew more intrigued. By the time the season finale aired, the numbers had climbed to 14 million viewers, a significant jump that indicated something was clicking with audiences. Critics took notice as well. Many praised the show's cinematic style, eerie atmosphere, and intelligent storytelling. The balance between horror and procedural drama made it unique, while the chemistry between Duchovny and Anderson gave it heart. It was unlike anything else on television at the time, but while the show had found an audience, it wasn't yet a runaway hit. That began to change during its second season. Ratings climbed steadily, and by the third season, The X-Files had gone from being a cult favorite to a mainstream phenomenon. By the fourth season, the show was pulling in over 20 million viewers per episode, making it Fox's highest-rated show at the time. Awards recognition soon followed. The show racked up multiple Emmy nominations, with Gillian Anderson winning for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series in 1997. The X-Files also became a Golden Globe favorite, winning Best Drama Series in both 1995 and 1997. Anderson and Duchovny were now household names, and their faces were everywhere. But behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to form. Creative tensions, contract disputes, and shifting priorities would soon send the show into a downward spiral. One of the first major fractures came from David Duchovny's dissatisfaction with the show. By the fifth season, The X-Files had become a phenomenon, and Duchovny's profile had skyrocketed. But there was a problem. He was tired of filming in Vancouver. Unlike most major television productions at the time, The X-Files was shot almost entirely in Canada, which contributed to the show's signature eerie atmosphere. But for Duchovny, this meant spending long stretches of time away from his wife, who was based in Los Angeles. Duchovny pushed hard for production to be relocated, and by season 6, he got his wish. The show moved to Los Angeles, bringing a noticeable shift in its visual style. But Duchovny's issues with The X-Files ran deeper than just location. By the 7th season, he had grown frustrated with the series' long, winding mythology and the slow pace at which answers were revealed. He also had a major legal dispute with Fox, claiming the network had undercut the show's syndication deal, costing him millions in potential earnings. After a tense legal battle, Duchovny settled the lawsuit for a reported $20 million, but his relationship with the show had soured. By the end of season 7, Duchovny decided to leave the series as a full-time cast member. His character, Fox Mulder, was written out of the show, abducted by aliens in the season finale. He would return sporadically in later seasons, but his departure marked a turning point. With Duchovny gone, The X-Files faced a major challenge. Who could replace Mulder? Enter Robert Patrick, cast as Agent John Doggett, a no-nonsense former Marine with a skeptical, hard-edged approach to investigations. While Patrick was a talented actor, his addition divided the fan base. Many viewers had spent 7 years invested in Mulder and Scully's partnership, and Doggett's presence felt like an unwanted replacement rather than a fresh new direction. To make things even more complicated, Gillian Anderson had also grown weary of the show. By season 8, she was appearing in fewer episodes, and The X-Files introduced another new lead, Annabeth Gish as Agent Monica Reyes. The move was an attempt to shift the dynamic, but it was clear that the magic of the original Mulder-Scully pairing was gone. Ratings began to plummet. By season 9, that number had dropped to just over 10 million. Many fans found the new direction unsatisfying, and longtime viewers started to drift away. The final blow came in the form of Fox's decision to officially cancel the series. On May 19, 2002, The X-Files aired its series finale, The Truth, which saw Mulder returning for one last case. The episode attempted to tie up the show's sprawling mythology, but for many fans, it was too little, too late. The ending was rushed, convoluted, and unsatisfying, failing to provide a definitive resolution to the alien conspiracy that had driven the show for nearly a decade. But the story wasn't finished just yet. Even after cancellation, The X-Files refused to stay buried.
You believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
These are no ordinary mysteries.
Whatever is on that train is not alien.
Even after The X-Files ended, Fox wasn't ready to let the franchise die. The show had been a global phenomenon, and there was still interest in continuing the story in some form. Chris Carter and the cast had long talked about making a movie, and in 1998, they had already tested the waters with The X-Files Fight the Future. That first film, released between seasons 5 and 6, had been an ambitious attempt to expand the show's mythology onto the big screen. The movie had performed decently at the box office, pulling in $189 million worldwide, but it had never been a massive blockbuster. Still, Fox saw potential in continuing The X-Files in theaters. The plan was to launch a series of films, but those plans stalled when the show itself began to decline. When the 9th season ended in 2002, the franchise went dark for 6 years. Then, in 2008, Carter and the studio finally moved forward with a second film, The X-Files: I Want to Believe. Unlike the first movie, which had been deeply tied to the show's mythology, I Want to Believe took a different approach. It was a standalone story structured more like a Monster of the Week episode than a continuation of the alien conspiracy. The movie was a box office failure. Released in the shadow of The Dark Knight, it was quickly overshadowed and only managed to earn $68 million worldwide, a huge drop from the first film. Fans were also disappointed. They had waited 6 years for another chapter in the X-Files saga, only to be given a low-stakes, self-contained story that felt more like an extended TV episode than a true cinematic event. After the failure of I Want to Believe, the X-Files once again faded into obscurity. By 2015, Fox saw an opportunity. They approached Carter, Duchovny, and Anderson with an offer, a limited series revival. It wouldn't be a full-fledged return to the old format, but a short event series designed to test the waters. In 2016, The X-Files returned with a 6-episode 10th season. The revival pulled in strong numbers at first, with over 16 million viewers tuning in for the premiere, making it the most watched episode of The X-Files in over a decade. But despite the initial hype, the response was mixed. The season suffered from inconsistent writing, with some episodes recapturing the magic of the original run while others felt rushed and poorly conceived. Despite the uneven reception, Fox pushed ahead with an 11th season in 2018, this time expanding to 10 episodes. But by this point, the cracks were more obvious. The storytelling felt outdated, and the mythology episodes once again frustrated fans rather than satisfying them. To make matters worse, Gillian Anderson announced that season 11 would be her last, effectively ending the possibility of continuing the show in its current form. The revival had failed to reignite the franchise in any meaningful way, and with Anderson gone, the series was left in limbo. In the years since, there have been rumors of other X-Files projects. At one point, an animated comedy spin-off titled The X-Files Albuquerque was in development, though it was later scrapped. More recently, in 2023, filmmaker Ryan Coogler was reportedly working on a reboot, but details remained scarce. Despite The X-Files struggling in its later years, its presence in home media never wavered. From VHS to DVD and Blu-ray, the series remained widely available. In the mid-90s, VHS wave sets offered curated episode collections chosen by Chris Carter, mixing mythology arcs with standout Monster of the Week stories. The 2000s saw full season DVD box sets, complete with remastered episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and commentary, helping introduce The X-Files to a new generation. By 2015, Fox released The X-Files the complete series on Blu-ray, upgrading the show to high-definition widescreen.
Are you ready for this?
The show remains a landmark with its eerie theme, iconic taglines, and lasting influence on TV and pop culture. Did it ever fully answer its mysteries? Not exactly, but maybe that's the point, because in The X-Files, the truth is always just out of reach. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content.